under pressure, but we were meant to be. Born here to be better, yeah, we a different breed.
Yo, what's going on? Welcome to the second episode of the Diamond Standard Dropping Gems podcast. Diamond Standard is a platform meant to empower people of marginalized identities, be it people of color, immigrants and the children of immigrants, and above all, the working class. We are the diamonds formed under the pressure of having to navigate an unjust society as a marginalized person. Today on this episode, we're going to talk about specifically South Asian communities organizing politically in New York City, where I'm from. And I'm not alone. Today, I want to welcome the first official guest on the Dropping Gems podcast. We have Ashraf Chowdhury. What's going on, man?
How's it going, man? Good to be here.
I'm glad you're here. So tell me about yourself, Ashraf.
So my name is Ashraf. I was born in Sylhet, Bangladesh.
Sylhetis represent.
Hell yeah. And I immigrated here in 2016. And I came right to the Bronx, and I've been there ever since. So I consider myself a Bronx native. Parkchester represent. And I've kind of had this identity of like a New Yorker-ish. But at the same time, like the Bengali in me has also been very prevalent in there. So I've never really found myself too in line with either of those identities. So I've always been like, oh, that you're a New Yorker, but you also have this Bengali side of you. But you go back home like, oh, you're a Bengali, but you also have this New Yorker side of you. You know what I mean? It's like a kind of mixed sort of mesh of two different people.
To give you some affirmation, as a Bangladeshi who was born and raised right here, so, you know, I'm more of a New Yorker than anything else. You still sometimes don't feel quite like you're an American, let alone a New Yorker. So there's always going to be that third culture kind of, you know, we fit in everywhere and nowhere at the same time. But I find your story fascinating because Bangladesh is always heavily in the conversation as far as South Asians in politics, especially in New York, because a lot of people don't realize 2/3 of America's Bangladeshi population is right here in New York City. So, you know, to not be speaking on the contributions of our people to the fabric of New York City is quite honestly a disservice. So I think I want to ask you first, growing up in Bangladesh for about the first half of your life or so, and then coming to New York, how has that shaped your worldview, your political views, your motivations to do work in organizing? Like, how do you feel like growing up in Bangladesh first contextualized all that for you?
Sure. In terms of the organizing aspect of it, I feel like growing up in Bangladesh, just like the typical culture in Bangladesh is centered around like, you know, we have a very traditional mindset. Like I am the only son in my family. So, hey, you're a son, you have these responsibilities to your parents, you have these responsibilities to your siblings, your entire extended family, right? And you have these moral obligations to your community, not just your faith community, but also to your ethnic community. I was born and raised Muslim. So I also had that obligation where I'm like, hey, the people I see at the mosque every day, I have to say salam to them. You know, people I see at Eid prayer, I have to give them a hug. You know, I have to, whenever I see an auntie, you know, she's carrying her groceries up the stairs and she's a hijabi, you know, I have to prioritize that to myself. Hey, that's somebody in my community that needs help. So I feel like from an early age, even from when I was in Bangladesh, it's been instilled in me like, hey, whenever people need help or whenever there's something going wrong, I felt like it was always in my nature to help to the best I could. And that just got amplified when I started, you know, seeing all the terror around October 7th. And then a couple of years ago, there was this thing where Pakistan had like these massive floods where a lot of people got stranded and, you know, a lot of tragic things happened over there. But then in America, they were fighting for TPS, for undocumented Pakistanis. TPS stands for temporary protected status. So if, let's say, another country is going through, let's say, a natural disaster, the American government will grant undocumented people from that country a temporary protected status that will allow them to work for higher wages and send that money back to help their families. So when I found out that campaign was going on, I actually found that out through my first couple of meetings at Drum. And I was like, well, this is amazing, but how come I never knew about this? How come nobody else knows about this? So immediately I was like, okay, what can I do to get involved? I feel like that was when I started getting into a little bit more like, hey, this is like the political aspect of it. Like, hey, this isn't just political. It's something I feel like I'm morally obliged to do and just to learn about, right? And then, you know, the whole Palestine thing happened and I became really politically aware of like all like the political tension not only in this country but like globally. We started to understand who our allies were and who were the people that were lying to us for all this time. And that's where I started to form some of my own opinions on things. We were taught about Palestine ever since I was like 5. Like my mom would always tell us stories about like, well, back when Jerusalem was, under Crusader rule and how like Muslims were martyred there. And then she would always tell me stories about people who like conquered it and stuff like that. So Palestine was always like that issue that all of us could unite on, and something that I felt really resonated with. So when I came to this country and I picked up that work, I felt a little bit empowered even from my own background. Like, hey, this is something that my family has been a part of. This is something that like my own mom tells me to, be a part of every day. So yeah, I feel like my background is deeply rooted in like the organizing work I do.
Yeah, beautifully said. And I think it's testament to our culture, whether it's back home in the motherland or even just in my experience with the Bangladeshi community here and growing up with our culture and our values, collectivism in the context of a community and just our general society around us. Absolutely, we were raised to care for our neighbors, to care for our aunties and uncles. And if you think even just in the subtleties of our language, the fact that we refer to other adults as just auntie and uncle,
Yeah.
like they're not our relatives, but we treat them with that level of respect. And so it's beautiful to see that those values are not lost. Tell me more about coming to New York City, growing up here as a young man, and what are some of the things you saw growing up in New York that kind of motivated you towards organizing and lead you to the organization that you work at now, Drum, which we'll get into.
Before Drum, I joined this Muslim organization called Muna, and I felt like that was where like I realized this greater sense of community, not just as Bangladeshis or Muslims, but as like a community of people that live here. My Arabic teacher when I was growing up was from Gambia, and like one of my closest friends, and he reverted, and then we met the second week after he reverted. His name's Raphael.
Mm-hmm.
He's been
Shout out.
Yeah, he's been one of my closest friends, and he's Dominican. And so just this diversity that I've seen, and like just the community that we all shared, not from our ethnic backgrounds, not even from our religious backgrounds oftentimes, because yes, we bonded through our religion, but we also found that shared sense of humanity in ourselves to like actually drive that sense of friendship and brotherhood at home, right?
Absolutely. And I think you're touching on exactly what I feel makes New York City, no matter what it goes through, no matter what trials and tribulations our people go through, this will always be in my heart the best city on earth, is because, when they talk about how America was supposed to be this melting pot where people from all over the world could live in harmony, I feel like New York City is the closest that we have to it. And it's because all these different communities have found safety here. And this is the type of shared collective experience that we're all trying to work towards and protect and advocate for the most vulnerable people around the world who do come to this city to find safety. So with that said, tell me, how that led you to Drum, because Drum is an organization I've been aware of as a Queens kid, pretty much as long as I can remember, but admittedly don't know too much about it. So please tell me about Drum, how you got involved.
Well, this was back when one of our Drum supervisors was expanding Drum to the Bronx, and this was the first Bronx-based the first couple of Bronx-based meetings. I was held in Parkchester, and my sister was a part of the first few. And she was like, "Hey, there's this new program. There's a guy there that has a really cool car. You might like it. Show up." And I was like, "Cool car. All right, you got me." So I show up, and at the time, PIC, the message I'm a part of, they were having a lot of close conversations with like the NYPD, and in my opinion, the NYPD was, at the time, I thought they were like, the closer we are with them, the safer we are, right? But then I went to the Drum meetings, and I started hearing like there's these protests against the NYPD, and then they were doing this, and then they were doing that. I was like, that's not true. I know a couple of officers myself. Like, hell, some of my family members are officers.
The police are here to keep us safe.
Exactly, and like people in my my extended family are police officers. What are you talking about? Everything he said, like, a little bit of my reality kind of broke, because he didn't just come with like opinions and statement. He came with facts. He was telling me like right after 9/11 how like Desi people, or just people of Muslim descent, they just disappeared,
disappeared.
Like they were just picked up by the FBI.
Oh my God.
And they were gone.
Of course, post 9/11 Islamophobia.
Exactly.
The roof. Yeah.
A lot of families lost the able-bodied men that were the breadwinners of that family, and they didn't know where they went. That night, I actually found a podcast from a Muslim influencer, and at the time my political views were guided very much through like the Muslim organizing lens.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, this guy's Muslim, maybe he knows what he's talking about. And he was doing an interview with this brother that was freed from Guantanamo Bay,
Mm.
and he was talking about how he was unjustly held there for like a couple of years, and he was just describing the torture that he went through, and I was like, what? And this happened right under our noses? Like, how come I never heard about this? And then I came back to the next meeting, and we had some more conflicts and conversations, and I went back home, did some more research, and that's when I started like, oh, dude, shit, what the hell?
Yeah.
And then my mindset went from, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, to being like, how can I help? At the time, I was a freshman in high school. So I was like, what if I made a club at my school? Since this is a Desi organization and I only have 6 Desi kids in my school.
Oh my God, we need to touch on that a little bit. Yeah, going to school in Phi-Dai downtown.
Yeah.
Oh my God, is it mostly white kids at your school or?
Oh, I think the majority is like white and East Asian.
Okay, yeah.
So it's like right next to Chinatown. And that led into like my kind of organizing work that I do today, where we had this idea of, okay, how can we get high school students to start getting in on this political action? Because a lot of kids, like, they say they don't want to get political, but then they also care about these issues. But then when they're put under this like label, oh, that's too political, that's too radical, they get scared away. But what if we reframe that talk, that mentality or that language, and we were like, no, do you care about people starving in other countries? Do you care about you yourself having a edible lunch at school?
Right. You don't need to be the most informed or tapped into
Exactly.
to have a gut reaction to things like that.
And these reactions are natural.
Yeah.
Like, your gut is telling you something is wrong.
Yeah.
And it's not like, you're being brainwashed by some political movement. Like, everybody knows nobody should go hungry. That's like a universal morality thing that we have. And saying that's wrong, like, hey, no, those kids shouldn't starve, isn't political. It's just you being human. And having those conversations in school, we started organizing, okay, hey, let's start making a club about this. Let's start posting videos about this. Let's start, trying to get more kids to know about this. And then that led into like the program that we do today called YPA, where we developed that kind of club structure into like a citywide network, which we just recently launched as like a whole citywide thing. We're getting students that are currently just either going into high school or just about to finish with high school, and we're asking them to inquire with their school leaders and their principals, their guidance counselors, their social workers in their school, and be like, hey, I realized that the finance club shut down last year. What happened? Or oh, hey, we realized that, because you can't exactly ask them, oh, hey, did you guys lose any funding? Nobody wants to tell a kid that.
Yeah.
But if you ask like, oh, hey, I realized that we didn't have as many clubs this year approved as we thought we would. What happened? And they'll tell you, oh, hey, we just didn't have it in the budget. And then you have that information, like, oh, hey, the budget was short this year.
This is not just limited to your high school.
No.
You guys are, like you said, forming a network amongst schools all throughout NYC?
Yes.
Okay, wow.
And this isn't something like, oh, you'd have a club in the school to do it. No, if you're a student in the school, you can start building that relationship with your administration, and you're in a position to do that. You can do it.
So your goal with YPA is to kind of launch chapters in other schools, or?
That is the long-term goal, but for right now is to really activate students to start asking more questions.
Right.
Because a lot of the times
it's a process.
Yeah. So we're not even thinking chapters right now. We're just thinking, hey, do you care about this issue?
Right. Step one.
Exactly. And the more students we can get to be like, hey, maybe we should actually inquire about this, giving them the confidence and the drive to actually start wanting to ask questions. I have a friend who goes to MCSM, right? And I'm also like a very big robotics nerd. So,
nerd out with me, man.
So in my school, we don't have a robotics club. So I wanted to start one. And I was looking for, okay, how much money do we need to start a robotics club? Because it's a pretty expensive process. I asked my friend from MCSM, and he's like, oh, our school, we get a like a card from our school every year to ball out on our parts and our registration and everything. The school takes care of it. While I'm over here in my high school, and I asked my administration, they're like, oh, it's a lot of money. I don't think we have all that.
Which is interesting because, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like your school is not necessarily a school in an underserved neighborhood or like a low income neighborhood, or.
We'll get into that.
Sure.
But the conversation wasn't, oh, we don't have money, but the conversation was, hey, let's break down these costs.
Uh-huh.
How much does this cost? How much does this cost? And can we make this more efficient? And I wasn't explicitly told, hey, no, we don't have enough money to run this. But I was told like, hey, let's revisit this. Let's see how we can get still do something similar, but not spend as much money. And then I realized, wait, we are really tight on money. And that's not the fault of the school where like they don't want to have new initiatives. They love new programs. They would love to have a robotics team. But it's just we're working with such a tight budget, we don't have the resources to offer that to students. And that's where like my principal at the time, who I thought was like this monster that didn't want me to do anything. Then he became human to me. Like, hey, he's being given like a really tight budget, and whatever he's doing with it just to run the school is a miracle.
Right.
That allowed me to build a relationship with my principal. Like, hey, no, I understand. Like, whatever you're doing, it's working. And I can't ask for more because we don't have more. But I can ask our elected representatives, why don't we have more?
Yeah.
Who do we ask? So then I started asking those questions. And if I can have that realization, and if I can build that trust with my administration, anybody else can do it too. Wow.
You're giving a perfect example of something that I think is super important. Like I'm very excited to talk to you as someone who, I've got a little over a decade on you. So to me, you represent sort of like the next generation of New Yorkers. And I think it's a safe assumption that as time goes on, each generation of kids is generally more politically, socially aware than the generation before. Because I know for a fact in high school, and, I went to Stuyvesant, which is, we can assume, the brightest kids in New York. We weren't having political conversations. I mean, I'm sure, there were kids involved in their own ways, but it really wasn't part of like our everyday dialogue. Politics in general were not part of, my everyday consciousness as a teenager. And that was definitely something I was excited to pick your brain on, is just trying to understand, like, these conversations of, rent is through the roof in New York City. A fraction of public school children are homeless, straight up, right? Like, these are families going through this in real time. And then obviously, on a federal level with the current administration, like, what's sort of the climate and the attitude amongst, people your age, like, going through school?
I feel like because of the current climates and the current issues that have risen, we don't have a choice except to become radical.
Of course.
You guys didn't have that much political conversation because you didn't have the circumstances that we have.
Right.
You didn't have to deal with a mayor that was cutting your school's budget by like $100 billion.
Right.
Right. You didn't have to deal with a president that was shutting down the Department of Education.
Right.
You didn't think your education was at jeopardy.
Of course.
We're terrified that our education's at jeopardy.
Of course.
And every year that goes by, more and more kids realize that. And one thing that I've noticed about at least my generation is that we are so stubbornly annoying.
Good.
Right? That
be.
when we don't have something that we want, instead of like sucking it up, we're gonna be like, why don't I have it? And it's not in like that whining
entitled way,
but it's like, what are the conditions that allow me to not have it? What's wrong? What can I do to change that?
Right. And that's the one thing I want everybody to be able to understand is, like, we do have an incumbent responsibility as civilians to just be more civically engaged. And obviously, to be able to say that, on a mic in front of a camera is a privilege in itself, right? When there are so many working class people, immigrant people, undocumented people who, they're working such erratic long hours that they probably don't even have the time to think about being civically engaged because they're trying to put food on the table and just survive. There are also so many people, because of language barriers, that they're probably not even aware that they can get involved, or they have such a classic, immigrant, keep your head down and, don't ask too many questions type of mentality. So I'm glad to hear that, the younger people in New York, like, you guys are having that mindset. Like, my advice to any, young people or just anyone of any age is just, at the very least, understand the forces and the systems and the agencies and the companies involved that at least affect your everyday life. Like, even, everything we depend on, from our power, our heat, what are those companies, what are those agencies doing? Why are Con Ed bills raising for New Yorkers astronomically? Like, just start with the things that affect your everyday life. I think that's a good place to start for anybody.
Yeah. And I feel like something that prevents that from happening is like, well, I'll give you an example. Right after October 7th happened, for example, right? A lot of the conversation shifted from, hey, Palestine, to, whoa, Palestine.
Right.
Because before October 7th, Palestine wasn't like a radical issue. It was like, oh, humanitarian rights, awesome. But then after October 7th, students started getting scared, like, hey, I'm going to put on a list. I don't know who's watching. I don't know if this is going to jeopardize my college admissions process or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And that was such a big problem for people. And people actually dropped out of our club because they thought this was too political for them.
Right. Yeah, you don't want to be
Political.
a target.
The propaganda machine did this so well. The protests that they would sign up to, they wouldn't show up because they were scared that somebody would see them or their name would be put on some sort of list or something.
Right.
And that kind of fear-mongering really worked on young people. But then as it kept happening, and those brave few people that kept showing up to those protests,
Right.
and those people that kept reposting, kept showing up, kept organizing new events, kept thinking about new ideas to expose Palestine to the media, the propaganda machine slowly started to fall apart. Like, after like 6 months into the genocide, we weren't talking, oh, I don't know if I want to go into that protest anymore. We're like, oh, there's like this arts event that's celebrating Palestinian art. Oh, there's this march on Washington. 2 marches on Washington happened where like 100, I think more than 300,000 people showed up.
We were at one of them, and yeah.
And you saw the size of that.
We actually couldn't see the size because it was just that big. Yeah,
exactly.
That many people.
Yeah, we did that. And it wasn't like, oh, we needed this media machine to be like, oh, look at this, people are rising up. No. Actually, we were censored for the first year. We were actually, all the posts were suppressed. The algorithm suppressed us.
Yep.
But even then, so many people cared enough, and we kept pushing enough, and we kept organizing enough that we slowly started pushing back against the algorithm in itself. You don't get 300,000 people by manipulating the algorithm. You get 300,000 people by giving them substance to show up for, right? And it's not like people are showing up, oh, because this is good for my college essay. It's actually bad for your college.
Bad,
yeah.
Because let's be real, especially a lot of the best, the quote unquote best
Columbias,
the Columbias and the NYUs, we all know where their investments are.
I feel like some of like the most inspiring stuff that happened, especially with young people, was like our university encampments. So I also work with Muna, right? And they sent me to lobby as a lobbyist on International Muslim Day at Capitol Hill, where we like got to speak with our elected officials and like ask them to vote for certain bills. And while we're on the Capitol, on the television screens of the Capitol building, we're seeing these student encampments. One of my friends that was with us, his sister was at the Columbia encampment, and it was like, whoa, the National Guard is involved. They're scared of us.
Yep.
And it's like, what kind of power do we have as students that the president is sending people to shut us up? Like, the last time something like that happened was at Little Rock, Arkansas, where we were fighting against segregation. And that's a story that's celebrated as national, those are like our national heroes now.
Right.
And this is like on that same level where like the National Guard is coming to break up a peaceful encampment, by the way, of students that are fighting for something that they believe in.
History has always shown that the students generally were on the right side. Like during the Vietnam War, student protests were, we look at those photographs today. We look at the headlines from back then. It's eerie how history repeats itself.
You have no idea.
Yeah.
I'm a practicing Muslim. So in Islam, there's this thing of, you have to protect your community. You have to have this protective jealousy over the people in your community. And you have to be as a man, you have to be like a shield for people. That's why we love Palestinian men so much, because they see themselves not as individuals, but as instruments to help their people.
As part of a collective.
Exactly.
Their community.
And I'm not sure if it was in New York, but somewhere I saw, like, when the protests did start, all the men started running away. And actually, Muslim women were at the forefront of these protests. They were the organizers of these protests. And I was like, we are such cowards.
Yeah. You know the phrase, like, men used to go to war. It's like, men used to protest war too. What's going on?
And then I saw at one of the UCs, when the Zionists started harassing the female protesters, the men started forming a ring around them. And it was like the Muslim brothers that were doing that. And I was like, dude, this is our community.
Absolutely.
Like, this is way bigger than you and me. This is like us fighting for our identity.
Yeah.
Right? And that's where I felt really connected to organizing work. Like, this is something that I feel like is going to affect the rest of my life. Because you don't see these moments often. And if you were able to be a part of something that creates a movement like that, that's your life's work right there. Right? And imagine if we created a movement where Desi people had that sort of responsibility and duty to their own community. Imagine the kind of things we could do. Imagine if high school students, every time there was new law that they realized this isn't serving me, and they knew what they deserved, and every time they saw a politician slacking off, 5,000 students show up at your door. No, you got to check up, bro. Like, no, we're not messing around.
Exactly. That's the type of energy we want to see.
Exactly.
Beautifully said. Do you feel like the Desi community is getting more involved politically, specifically? And I know Drum obviously does a lot of work. So what are the recent issues you guys are working on?
Obviously, with the current administration, we've been seeing a lot of like ICE raids in our city, right? Of course. And a lot of people have just been disappearing. I remember the first time I realized, oh shit, this was real, is when my sister's old high school, it's in somewhere in the South Bronx. Mm-hmm. She had a deli next to her school. The guy that made the sandwiches, they made the best chicken cutlet sandwiches in the borough. I could you not.
Of course, man. The bodegas.
And then the first thing that I saw, that I was like, oh shit, this is real. This is not just stuff on TV. This is real. Yeah. Where ICE agents picked them up.
Yeah.
And we never found out about what happened to him at all.
It's heartbreaking, man. Those are the things that radicalize you, is like when you see how the current administration and you see how the circumstances of people are affected. Like you said, it's not just on TV. It's not just a viral video on social media. This is real life, man. Yeah. Like, I especially feel for your generation as well, because you guys were very young, living through a global pandemic. You know what I mean? Like, in lockdown, me and my parents, I was still living with them at the time. We did not set foot outside the crib for literally like 4 months straight. And we would literally hear through, neighbors or whoever that, this elderly person who worked at this deli across the street, they passed away from COVID. Yeah. And you see the effects of how working class black and brown areas where people are the essential workers, they don't get to work remotely. Like, these are the people in the communities who are most affected by global disasters, like whether it's a natural disaster or, something unfortunately hellishly man-made, like the ICE raids. We see how these atrocities affect people literally that are part of our everyday lives.
Yeah. There's no guaranteed way to keep people safe right now. So like those conversations of like frustration and like genuine like
it's pain, it's fear,
scaredness, right? Like terror.
Yeah. The ICE agents, those are the terrorists. Come on now.
Yeah. When you're an organizer that's doing that kind of work and you're asking yourself, well, what do we do now? Because we're all in danger and we don't know how to fend for ourselves. I feel like from these times is when like more effective organizing is born. Like, where times like these, we have to think outside the box. Old structures will not work because stuff like this has happened before, but not in our lifetime.
Right. Not at the magnitude.
Exactly.
That it's happening.
So we have to figure shit out. And this is where like a lot of like those structures and those strategies are born from this kind of situations. And I feel like Drum's been one of those organizations that's been thinking really heavily on, okay, what's the most rational step to take? What step can we take that'll ensure that most people are, safe?
I imagine, especially as the ICE raids have picked up, I imagine that's like the main issue you guys are focused on at the moment.
Yeah.
So what do you see as some of the biggest challenges that Asian communities and working class immigrant communities in New York City are facing?
Well, contrary to popular belief, a lot of our differences aren't actually in our ethnicity or our race. It's actually in our class. Because
speak on it.
A lot of the times we see that, oh, my mom made curry for lunch. The kids made fun of me, right? That mentality. The rich ass stand-up comedians that unfortunately are the face of our
South Asian representation. Oh, you're speaking my language now, bro. Trust. The folks who think that, oh yeah, kids made fun of my lunch in first grade, so therefore it's okay for me to be like a rich capitalist who doesn't care about anybody else.
Yeah.
This is a very weird disconnect with a lot of South Asians. I'll use the air quotes because we know which ones.
And I feel like a lot of the times when we speak about South Asian issues, we often forget that a majority of the South Asian population in the city are under the poverty line.
Absolutely.
Like, these aren't people that are like, you give them one lecture about political movement and they'll be right on your bandwagon. No, these are people who are like juggling 5 different things at home, in school, at their extracurriculars or whatever they have. So expecting them to be like this capitalist system and then, these guys are trying to steal your ethics, your money and whatever. They don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's not what they're worried about. Their AP exam at the end of the month.
Right.
They're worried about their dad coming home and being mad. They're worried about their mom, like, pressing about when they're going to move out of that 1-bedroom apartment of theirs.
Right.
And I'm comfortable enough to say it now. Those aren't any other people's problems. Those are my problems.
Absolutely.
I myself have those issues.
Absolutely.
Right.
And without proper representation, because I know when I was growing up, going through literally all those things you just described, I always felt so like nobody else really understands this stuff. No TV shows, no media out there is talking about this stuff. And then you feel otherized to a whole different extent. What about all the brown people who didn't come here as wealthy doctors and have kids in the suburbs?
Yeah.
You know? And specifically with the New York City Bangladeshi community, as you said, a lot of us are under the poverty line. A lot of our, parents, they come here not knowing English. They come here undocumented. So you feel like those intersections of our condition are amongst the forefront of the issues we're facing?
Yeah. I myself, as like an immigrant that's went to school with undocumented folks, and like I've almost spent my entire life around like, lower middle class people. I feel like when we went to school, we didn't see people like ourselves. Like the second I went to high school, I didn't see brown people that were like me. I saw brown people that were, their entire friend group was white. Mm-hmm. Their entire friend group was, their mom's a doctor, dad's an engineer. They probably have a trust fund in their name.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm like, and they're like, hey, do you want to go get sushi this weekend? I'm broke.
Yeah.
Right?
Hell no.
Like
they're going out for lunch, buying whatever every
exactly
day.
And I'm like, dude,
I was on free lunch, bro. I don't know what to tell you. Like
yeah. And when you see that in like the people in your own community are like, there's such a separated, in the higher echelons of, the social class, you do end up feeling a little bit lonely. And I'm not saying that to be like, I'm not asking people to feel bad for me. I'm just saying, hey, these are things that, yes, they're natural to feel. That's just how society works. We're not trying to change that. It's just when we do feel those things, we should have those support systems where like, hey, I'm not going to hang out with you guys, but I'm going to hang out with like, people outside the school, where like, I'm going to hang out with people from the Bronx. I'm going to hang out with like my black friends who've seen the same struggles as me. I'm going to hang out with them. That's where I start to veer out from my community. Yeah. And I find people not in my own race group, but in my own, socioeconomic group.
I agree.
Where like even though I'm not from your culture, I share your struggles. And I feel like that is such a more like unifying force.
Absolutely.
When it comes to like speaking about, who, what are our values? Who do we see as our allies? What is our community? When we see people having the same struggles as us, that is 1,000 times more like, comforting to someone than seeing somebody who looks like you. Like Shah Rukh Khan looks like me. Do I relate to the guy? Hell no. Right?
Absolutely. It's crazy. You beautifully captured again the magic of growing up in New York City is the fact that surrounding you are kids and families of all different cultures, and we grow up setting foot into different homes, tasting different foods, understanding their customs. But at the end of the day, we might not all speak the same languages at home or follow the same religions, but we share a huge common foundational experience, which is just growing up working class or low income as the child of immigrants in New York. Like that is a culture of its own. And that is absolutely one that we need to keep speaking on, because for most of my life, I thought most brown people in America were poor. Like I thought that was just part of it. Yeah. And that the brown people who, moved out to the suburbs in upstate or Long Island and they found wealth, I thought those were the exceptions. And then I didn't realize until, all the rich South Asians started gentrifying the fuck out of New York. I'm like, wait a minute. You're telling me most of y'all are wealthy like that? Wait, am I weird? Am I not the there's this whole reconciliation that needs to happen with our identities that puts class intersectionality at the forefront of the discussion. Yeah.
And to go back to your question, I feel like the issues that we face, especially at least when it comes to organizing, because drum, right? We work with a lot of our main requirement to be a drum member is you have to be low income. Mm-hmm. Your dad makes $200,000, you're probably not the right organization for you.
Interesting.
Right?
I'm curious, can you speak as to why Drum likes to prioritize working with people below that bracket?
We have this youth summer program called YP. It basically means youth power. Every summer you just basically get educated on the issues that our communities face and basically get a brief rundown of what organizing looks like. To be able to understand any of that, you need to know what it feels like to not be certain if you'll ever have your own room, to not be certain if your mom will ever have a garden, you not be certain if your mom is just gonna care enough to make you lunch tomorrow morning, right? Because if like you're coming from this background, or if, like, right, you live in this 2-story house and your dad's like giving you pocket money every weekend.
Yeah.
And you're going out with your friends and your mom's like giving out, and I'm not saying that's bad.
Right.
That's obviously that's something our community deserves, and people who have made it, they deserve it. That's great. But, when that becomes the only thing you talk about, like, oh, auntie gave you, squash from her garden, and then your mom is like picking out these crusty ass cilantro leaves from the supermarket. She's like, I wish I had my own garden.
Mm-hmm.
And then she feels disconnected from them.
I love the way you're painting that image, because class differences is not just, oh, I live in an apartment while they live in a big house. It affects literally everything down to the quality of the food we eat.
Yeah. So when we talk about how do we organize, like, people who are struggling, because that's why we organize. We organize to make people's living conditions better. If you're living in a mansion, you probably don't need better living conditions.
Right. And, while we need and we welcome allies of all backgrounds,
of course.
At the end of the day, obviously, you guys at Drum, like, the work you do is so deep in the trenches, for lack of a better term, that these issues really do need to be that close to home, most likely, for you to have the stomach and the drive to be in that intense environment and to really be as knee deep in these issues as you guys are. So I think that's really cool.
And I think the only way you're going to have this much understanding about even any political issue, is if you have some history with struggle yourself. Like, if you've never faced like some sort of injustice or systematic injustice, and even if you don't recognize it to be systematic injustice and you've just accepted it to be the way life is, you're not going to realize that that's wrong until and you're not going to live the way you would live if you knew that was wrong, until you faced it, until you faced injustice, until you faced like poverty, like downright dirt poor poverty.
Yeah.
And I feel like the reason why Drum has so many good youth organizers is because they're rooted from their struggles.
Yeah.
And we don't pull from these new ideas that we instill in them. We pull from their own struggles. We pull from, tell me more about how your family works. Tell me more about how you have to take care of your siblings. Tell me more about the things that make you you. Yeah. Tell me more about how you preserve your identity while being in those situations that require you to lose some of that.
Yeah. And as you're giving those examples, like, a lot of these things are not comfortable to talk about.
Absolutely not.
These are things that a lot of us from low income backgrounds, we feel shame around a lot of these things. I know to this day, I certainly still do. And a lot of that shame in my own family, like, the shame around living underneath the train station. There's a lot of shame that comes with being low income. And then there's a lot of shame that also comes with the mental health circumstances that growing up in poverty leads to. There's so much mental health resources that people of our communities don't have access to, or because
they have access to, but they don't utilize.
Okay.
Saying that there's not enough mental health resources does a great disservice to the work that's been done.
Fair.
Around mental health. It's just that getting our older generation, even our parents, or maybe sometimes our older siblings, to be open to utilizing those resources is the hardest part.
Absolutely.
Because there is a bunch of, well-trained psychiatrists or, mental health professionals that have trained in this field. But imagine asking your dad to go to therapy.
Yeah.
Imagine
I don't gotta imagine.
Imagine that conversation, right?
Imagine.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
I could not imagine. But a lot of the times, those are the kind of people that need it the most.
Yeah.
Oftentimes you like to demonize our male figures in our brown communities. Like, oh, they're so backwards. Oh, they're so strict. They have this issue, that issue. They have anger problems. But a lot of the time, what we don't think about is all the things they had to go through to be where they are.
Of course.
Right?
Of course.
For like a good portion of my life, I thought that my dad was like an asshole.
Right.
But then I started doing organizing work, and I started learning more about our community and like our history, and then all the things he grew up, all the political stuff that was going around when he was growing up.
Yeah.
And I asked him more stuff about how he grew up, and then I realized like my dad had to pick up the entire burden of the family when he was 19 years old. Like, when he was my age, he was the sole breadwinner of our family. He didn't have time to be like, oh, I feel sad, oh, I feel anxious. He had to go to work. He had to find a job, right? He was the only able-bodied person out of 6 of his siblings who was able to work. So not only did he have his parents, he had all his siblings to take care of. He didn't have time to think about his needs. So now that later in life, his needs are somewhat met, but he still feels this, intrinsic sense of like, oh, I have to provide. He's not used to thinking about, oh, how is my son feeling about this?
Yeah.
Or how is my daughter feeling about this? He's like, do they have food to eat? Do they have a roof over their head?
Good.
They're fine.
Yeah.
They're fine. Obviously, that's not a healthy mentality, but is that something he's had to survive with? Yes.
Yeah.
And is it efficient in that climate to survive with? Yes.
Yeah.
But can that be grown out of? Also, yes.
Mm.
Right? It's not like saying, oh, we need to have more mental health resources. It's that we need to have those conversations, those hard conversations with our older generation, where we need to be like, hey, talk to me about why you don't want to, why you don't want to mention grandpa. Talk to me about why you don't want to mention, the funeral service. Talk to me about these things you don't talk about. Like, we need to give them a space to, air out their shit. And when we do that, we realize that they actually want the best for you and they're willing to listen to you. It's just when they feel heard, they feel like they can let you speak as well. Because they feel like you're not hearing them, so they feel the need to speak over you. And this I'm speaking from my own personal experiences, right?
Yeah. Wow.
And I've never had these are some hard hitting conversations I've had with my parents, and that's something that I feel like has really like improved my relationship with them. Where now I don't see them as like, oh, my immigrant dad, he won't let me go outside past 12. No, but I see that as like, oh, they're worried about me.
With everything you're saying, I'm thinking of my own family, and I mean, I don't know when this became a young brown boy mental health podcast, but fuck it, we're gonna go there for a little bit, because I mean, hey, these are the things our communities deal with, right? Yeah. I'm glad that you've already come to the realization of like our Bangladeshi parents, they grew up either living directly through or directly in the aftermath of a genocide.
Yeah, like, and a man-made famine.
Yes, what we're seeing now in Sudan, Congo, Palestine, like, they lived through something of a very similar magnitude. And you know what? When you take that into consideration, it's like, okay, yeah, I should cut them a little slack for not being the perfect parent all the time. Or I think another important thing for children of immigrants to realize is that we have to accept the love languages that our parents are able to give, right? Like, generally speaking, people from our parents from their backgrounds, words of affirmation are not exactly a thing. They don't know how to say, I love you, I'm proud of you. But, what are their love languages? Being damn good providers at the expense of their own physical and mental well-being. Yeah. And, obviously that comes with a lot of responsibility and weight that we feel as their children on our shoulders. But I think it's beautiful how you express, we just got to hold space for our parents.
To bring it back to how this leads into, like, organizing our community.
That's right. Lead us, bro. Lead us.
Once we've made room for those kind of conversations to happen, that's when we shift from, okay, now our parents are on our side. We're not sneaking out the house to go to a drum meeting.
Right.
But we're actually bringing our parents with us, right? We have our communities of aunties and uncles that want to come to the drum meetings and they want to support.
Have elders been pulling up?
Oh my God. Yeah. The drum aunties are the best, dude.
Yeah, hell yeah. Tell me about that.
They're the best. There's so much love and so much support. Like, once they understand like the importance of the work that we do, even if you don't do anything in your meeting, they're like, oh, you're holding in? Great. Good.
You guys are a third space for these people.
Yeah.
Which, you're a third space for people who probably didn't even know that they needed a third space.
Yes.
Because all they do is go to work and go home, worry about family and survival.
Yeah.
You're providing community for these people, and it's amazing.
And drum's not the only place where this exists. Like, I've had the pleasure to work with more than one nonprofit organization that deals with more than one demographic. So like my work with Muna, I've seen like,
how do you spell it? Just for
MUNA.
MUNA.
It stands for Muslim Ummah of North America.
And what does drum stand for?
Desis, rising up and moving. While in drum, I'm seeing like our aunties have a space, and like the women in our community have a space. I'm also seeing like in Muna, like the men in our communities have a space where like they get to talk about these things. And I feel like within brown men, there's like this resistance to like talking about issues. Because to be honest, as Scott Gilheron said, the revolution will not be televised. It all starts in your head first.
Yeah.
So once you realize the things that are wrong with your mentality, that's the only way you can realize what's wrong with society itself. So what I've been trying to do is like, just nudge the men in our community just to be a little bit more empathetic and like open about their emotions. And I feel like that's been received really, really warmly. Like I've noticed, like, you know how I like how you mentioned third spaces, because I feel like now we've normalized this community of like the masjid, instead of becoming this place where you go to like imprison yourself for 10 minutes 5 times a day. You go to hang out with your friends.
Yeah.
The uncles go to have chai with their buddies.
Nothing warms my heart more than like walking around in the park and just seeing a bunch of dudes who look like my dad just like playing chess on the tables.
Exactly.
Like, it absolutely warms my heart.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. Like how we create community. Nonprofit work itself, it creates like this space for the members of that nonprofit to have like a little community to themselves, where they feel so comfortable to talk about all these things. In the future, like that's something I want to impart on my kids. We're like, no, we are South Asians and we take our community very seriously.
It's kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, you know, a lot of our community is still worrying about their basic needs, survival, but, you know, we want to be able to dream beyond that. We want to be able to not only have our basic needs met, we want people to financially thrive, socially thrive, mentally thrive. We want everything, because that's what our people deserve. That's what all people deserve.
Yeah, hell yeah. Nothing speaks more to organizing than building community. And that's how we build community. So once we have that community behind us, and once we have people power, then we introduce, hey guys, this politician is introducing this law that's going to take away Uncle Ahmed's chai shop. We got to do something about it.
Yeah.
And then everybody loves Uncle Ahmed's chai shop.
So they're going to show up.
They're going
to
up.
make the phone calls. They're
Exactly.
Okay, I love that.
So once we connect our communities together to, like, you know, understanding and love, that's when we introduce, like, hey, no, this doesn't just end here. We got to spread this elsewhere. We got to protect it.
Exactly.
And that's what I think, like, is the core of community organizing.
I love that as a core principle with which you guys organize. Is people should not be organizing and coming together just for their own sake. It's because we love each other, we love this community, and that's the type of collectivist energy that I'm glad people like you are building, all the organizations you're a part of and have been a part of, and obviously so many more, right? Like,
Yeah.
I do have one last question, just to kind of like contextualize everything you're talking about and kind of bring it to where we are today, right? Like, as of right now, you know, we're just a couple months away from the mayoral election in NYC. It really does feel like, you know, particularly our community, you know, the Bangladeshi community, I've never seen our community so civically engaged as they have been, you know, rallying behind Zoran Mamdani. What do you think the next few months look like for communities like ours?
I was listening to one of my supervisors talk recently, and they were like, there's a difference between being a politician and being an actual leader. And being a leader isn't that you have the most votes or you have the most, you know, amount of influence over people. It's that people trust you. And you're not only giving them, you know, loyalties, you're giving them substance. I think what Zohran did was he took all these struggles that we had that we share and we build a community around, right? Like EBT run grocery shops, right? That's, in a sense, that's like government incentivized grocery shopping, because a lot of our Bangladeshi community is under food stamps. So people who want cheaper groceries, they can relate to that because their paycheck can't cover it. They need the government's help, right? What really brought people to Zohran was, like, not only was he offering them all those core struggles that our community faces, he was also offering them a familiar face.
Yeah.
Which
is important. Because especially communities like ours, and from my observation, nobody really cared for politics because nobody was ever speaking to us.
Exactly.
Directly to us.
And do you know how many times I've seen Zohran in Parkchester? And I've seen him in Jackson Heights.
Yep.
And do you know how many uncles that I've seen in Jackson Heights? They're like, oh, that's Zohran. We know that guy.
Exactly.
We know that guy.
Exactly.
I feel like this is where it comes to, like, contextualizing his family. Because, you know, the first thing that you talk to when you talk to a Bengali person is, oh, tumhar bari hoy, or where are you, or which is in English is from, or where are you from? Oh, tumhara, what village are you from?
Right.
Or who's your dad? Right. We try to connect them to our family somehow.
Right.
So we have that common ground. First, he was able to, you know, like, the very cultured Indians on his side.
Right.
Because his mom's a filmmaker.
Of course.
Everybody knows Mississippi Masala.
Yep.
Right. And then this is not really known, but his dad is actually a very, very
anti-colonial scholar.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's a very well-known name in
Like,
academia.
come on, yeah.
Mahmoud Mamdani's book called Good Muslim, Bad Muslim was the first book that contextualized American involvement in Afghanistan and tried to make sense of 9/11. He was a voice for us when we felt attacked as a community.
Absolutely.
Right? And a lot of people in academia see that and they're like, oh, that's his son. We know him. We trust him. And because he also branded himself as a proud Muslim, not like some whitewashed,
Right.
like
Correcting Cuomo when you misspell his name, like say that
exactly
shit correct.
say that shit.
Damn right.
Don't
yeah.
blacken my beard. Why you blackening that shit?
Exactly.
Right?
And that's why all the smear campaigns are not sticking. Because
They're not sticking.
at the end of the day, they're not based in fact.
Closest thing I've seen to something actually sticking was that, oh, he comes from wealth.
I feel like that dimension of his identity actually adds to his appeal
Yeah.
because it usurps this assumption that wealthy people couldn't possibly care about the little guy. They
Exactly.
couldn't possibly care about
Exactly.
people who are less fortunate than themselves.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, has always been true, but, you know, hopefully he can be the change.
Yeah.
So,
He might go back. He can't fulfill 100% of his promises.
Yeah.
No politician can.
yeah, I'm already under the assumption that he'll probably lean a little, you know, at least a little bit towards the center
Yeah.
if he gets in.
And we'll
but-
keep him in check for
and
that.
we'll keep, and then it's on us, right?
Exactly.
It's on our same communities to, you know, the work doesn't stop
Yeah.
there once he's in office.
Those
That's
same
when it
uncles
starts.
going to be at a city council office like, yo, Ron, what the heck, man?
Yeah.
Like, we agreed this was not cool.
How can we make sure that our community stays involved once, you know, the social media clips dim down?
The movement and the momentum we've built so far with, like, aunties coming out and canvassing and uncles talking about it in the masjid, I think that'll only get better. Uncles don't like him because he's Zohran. Uncles like him because he wants to make their groceries cheaper.
Yeah.
He wants to make rent cheaper. And they're actually contextualizing his campaign, not from his face, but from his policies.
Yeah.
So if they see that he's lacking in those policies and they know him, the entire city is going to, you know, keep him hold him accountable. And I
Hope.
feel like that's what I trust in. My hope and my only reason for supporting him is that we're going to have a leader that we can hold accountable and he'll listen to us.
Beautiful.
Right?
Exactly. And that's what our communities need to feel. We need to feel
Yeah.
that our voices matter, that our
Exactly.
needs matter, that we are seen, that we are heard, and this is our city.
Exactly.
At the end of the day, this is our city. We're here to thrive in it. We're here to restore it to what we know it can be for our generation and all the generations that are to come after us. And I appreciate you, Ashraf, for taking your time with me today
problem, man.
to share your story, to share your views, to share, you know, everything that you're working on and will continue to work on. And
Of course.
it's been a blast, man. Thank you.
You too, man. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, of course. That wraps up the second episode of Dropping Gems, and Ashraf definitely dropped a bunch of gems today. Is there anything you want to shout out? Any, like, if people want to keep up with the organizations you're involved with?
Right now, we're in the middle of building YPA. It is a collective network of high school students that are mobilizing to hold their elected officials accountable. If you're a high school student in the city and you want to get involved in the work, we have an Instagram. Look us up, Youth Power Alliance NYC, all lowercase. We have a membership on our bio, and we'll have more content to come similar to this. Drum NYC, we just celebrated our 25th anniversary.
Beautiful.
Of organizing in our working class communities. 25 years of building power, building third spaces, and building, you know, having those hard conversations with our aunties. So, you know, 25 more years to come.
Hell yeah. All right, Dropping Gems. We here.